this chapter of the book, and I heard also earlier you talking about the spirited conversations that you had when you put the first version together, and then now the second version. The closing question is what one thing have you learned while working on the Apex standards that you are putting into practice in your own GBS work?
I can take that one first. So the one thing I find is I've been in this space almost, more than 25 years. And even though every management book says differently, you get to a point where you think you've known it all and you've seen it all.
Mm,
And you build your own narrative around GBS. You become very skilled at it, right? Because that's how you talk about it internally, etc. But I think through this process, working with Robert, but also working with other peers and really esteemed GBS leaders, learning from Filippo, who I always wanted to be when I grew up, right? Is just so enriching. And I think one of the learnings for me is there's just so much to learn. And there is no single truth out there in the space of GBS. It's a quest. You're gonna have to pick the components that work for you and then stitch them together in a way that you meet the company where it's at.
mm,
Because one of the
mm,
mistakes I've made that I haven't shared yet is when I was with Lufthansa, which is a very German engineering, pilots, operations company, and how we did transformation and GBS there, I then brought to Office Depot, which is a US retail quarterly earnings type of environment. When I presented the same model that was successful at Lufthansa, I got just blank stares. Like, who's this weird guy giving
yeah,
us all
yeah,
of this, right? So I
yeah.
think meeting companies where it's at and realizing that there is not a single way of success, but how do you people on this call connect to their peers in the industry and really remain curious about what's out there is definitely something that I can highly recommend. So that's certainly one of my learnings. And even through my discussion with Robert about these cross-cutting horizontals, I've now put like three leaders in place. One is leading, like one group that leads the transformation capability. One is the kind of service management, capability management, knowledge management, operations. And then the next one we're going to put in place is like the whole innovation. How do we now create that flywheel of AI innovation, continuous churn? Was
Hmm.
very much kind of born out of my conversations with Robert and other leaders. So I think it just shows the importance for us to not be too insular, but have an open mind on what has worked elsewhere.
I mean,
Yeah, very,
the
very
beauty
good.
of this, the work we've been doing, and certainly the second edition, and people will not know that, but the first edition was done by like a small group of 12 people. The second edition, we expanded the group, including yourself, Tim, and many others, and that made it ever so much more valuable because we got so many more different opinions and insights, and the talents, the diversity of thought that occurred was just tremendous. Um, and if there's one thing I'll take away is just how diverse GBS is and can be, and we try to capture it in the book and as good as we can. Um, but it's really an inspiration for me as I work with many companies now to help them appreciate the value they can bring and the different forms that can take. And it is pretty diverse.
Mm, mm. That's really, really inspiring way to end.